Hi, everybody. This is day 1152, I think. I just put it up anyway, 1152. And there's a lot to keep up with here. That's why, um, you know, it's been way over 3 years since Richard went missing there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. But he didn't go missing. We have confirmation today from a soldier that has come forward. I told you we have an alliance now in inside of Fort Bliss. With that alliance, um, soldiers are coming forward, and we received confirmation today from him. And I guess it would need some clarification from Major General Eisenhower. I mean, he is the CG of Fort Bliss, and it would need some clarification of the CID, wouldn't it, or the FBI? The FBI, because you have to remember on October 26th, 2020, the FBI took over Richard's case. And also, when uh, when all of this happened in 2020, it was not one agent in the CID of Fort Bliss that was assigned to Richard's case. It was all of them. That office is small. All of them, we received that confirmation too. They were all given access to Richard's file. They were all part of Richard's case. It's just that big. And you knew it was. They didn't want another Vanessa Guillen, and Richard is the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier. He's a whistleblower on top of that. I think the whistleblower part is becoming more and more and more important, almost surpassing, and I don't know how it could do that, the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier designation. But it is very, very important because we are finding out through even this Hunter Biden's case that whistleblowers are being retaliated against. They are being targeted. They are being tampered with. So you have witnesses being tampered with, and the whistleblowers in Hunter Biden's case um, are the lawyers for them are even saying that, right? And we also know that our Department of Justice and even our political system is being weaponized against those that are trying to get justice, right? That are trying to get to the point. And this is what happened in A.G. Paxton case that I believe, because now this is breaking news. Dan Patrick, which is the lieutenant governor for Texas and head of the Senate, sits there and he presided over the case or the trial of A.G. Paxton in the last couple weeks, and he is smoking. Smoke is coming out of his ears. Smoke is coming out of his nose. If you were going to draw some kind of meme, that's exactly it. And who would he be upset with? He would be upset with the Romney Bush, two little um, people underneath the Romney Bush people that started this targeting of A.G. Paxton, Ken Paxton. They targeted him with nothing, just like Richard was targeted with nothing, just like our key witness was targeted with nothing. This is like an SOP for these evil people. Not, I want clarification. I want clarification. I want clarification if um, Amber Chase is working right next to uh, James Hart at the VA. I think that that would be just, just breaking news. I want clarification if Belinda's parents, their names are Lydia Ortega Rocha, Lydia Isabel Ortega Rocha, and of course Eddie Rocha or Herberto Rocha, if they were working for Ann Ogle and Thomas Kane in their businesses, because we have confirmation now that Thomas Kane was in business with Ann Ogle, that they shared businesses, as well as being professors there at Park University, as well as Ann Ogle being an administrator for CYS there on Fort Bliss and in charge of the health and welfare, the mental health of all the children on Fort Bliss, which includes the emergency intake center, which we know was up to no good, 85,000 unaccounted for minors. And yeah, and I'll get to that in a minute too. And so they had many different hats, um, several businesses, Park University, and administrative, being the administrator for CYS, all the children there on Fort Bliss is huge. It's a huge trust that the American people, the people of El Paso, the soldiers, the service members on Fort Bliss have given Ann Ogle. And so we would like to know if, and this is wouldn't be a bad thing, right? It wouldn't be a bad thing. It would just absolutely clarify how Richard met Boleyn, right? That there was a connection if Ann Ogle hired Lydia and Eddie, with Thomas Kane being the co-owner of their business, for their business, to work in their business. Um, with Ann Ogle, it could be some kind of consultation business. Maybe that had to do with the emergency intake center. With Thomas Kane, it could be some kind of security business, of course. And they came together. They came together and they made these businesses. I don't know if other people are involved in this business. Okay, I don't. That would be something that the CID Quantico, Special Agent Jessica Veltri, she is this huge forensic person, but yet she still has to come to Fort Bliss to do her forensic work. She still has not come to the place where the crime scene is. She hasn't visited Fort Bliss. And maybe she should go down there instead of just having Richard's file on her desk. Maybe she should go down there and do her work that the American taxpayers are paying her to do, and get to the bottom of who murdered Richard with a code red, right? With a code red, that means with the order, with the okay, with the green light from the chain of command. Okay, that's what that means, and we know that that that's exactly we know that that's exactly what has happened, because of all of the evidence, all of the irregularities, all of the um, uh, uh, sub what do you call it? The other kind of evidence. It'll come to me in a minute. Has pointed to that Richard was a code red, right? Circumstantial evidence. Thank you. It came to me. Circumstantial evidence. All of this is pointing that Richard absolutely is deceased. Look, we have the intel coming out that his true designation is deceased. Okay, that it had many different changes. It went from dead while missing, and went to deceased, and so right now his designation, what we're getting, is deceased. That they found his parts, his partial remains, early on. They found his remains early on, and they kept that from us. This is has been now by this very brave soldier coming out of Fort Bliss, and of course, we have now a soldier um, that has put in uh, a request for a congressional inquiry. Now, that is a different soldier. So, this is a new soldier. And then we also have um, an individual that is part of the inner circle of Leilani Hart and James Hart. And, you know, they want what's right, and they see the writing on the wall, and they hear the knocks on the door, even though, and they know they're coming. They know that the knocks are coming. And so they're, giving us information. They're doing the right thing. And so this soldier, though, who I can call a soldier, but they want to stay anonymous, um, has said that Richard was never missing. They always knew that he had been murdered. Okay? But that's not all that he has said. And this is, maybe I need to eat some crow with this other person, that Chris Martin came into play when this person from California called, and she claimed that she was a paranormal, and she said that Richard was in the arms room. This soldier is saying that Richard was murdered in the arms room. And then it went from there, maybe to the, tactical move storage unit. Then something happened at the Van Buren house. We're trying to match all of this out. And then, of course, a plane was involved in, because, see, they did not want a Vanessa Guillen situation. Richard, there were arrests in July of 2020. Vanessa Guillen's remains were found. They never intended Vanessa Guillen's remains to be found, and they were found, thanks to God, thanks to God's creation. If you don't know about that story, absolutely pray before you read it. But her remains were found, and they announced it, I believe, on the 5th of July. If I'm right, they announced that these remains that came to light on the 29th of June were indeed Vanessa Guillen's. They announced that on the 5th of July, and they did not want another Vanessa Guillen. And that's why the reports that we're getting with the autopsies, that, they're not answering. They're not saying, oh, ma'am, no way. Uh, we don't have that information. That's false information. The numbers that you have, or the um, autopsy reports that, uh, were given to you, those aren't right. Okay. No one has said that. Nobody. Nobody. Nobody officially. Okay. And I think that Major General Eisenhower easily could have called us and said, ma'am, or written us. The JAG could have written us. The CID could have written us. Somebody could have written us and let us know. I mean, you would think that even General McConville, when he was still in, would want to write us. Maybe General Mealy, a show of good faith, would want to write us, and say, oh my gosh, where are you getting this information? But that hasn't happened. And the more evidence that comes in, the more irregularities that come through, it is all pointing that indeed these autopsies with partial remains being disseminated in different places, because they did not want anyone to find Richard's remains, is, we don't need to move forward in this. Okay, let's see if I'm on. I'm getting some weird messages. Okay, so I'm on, and we don't need, yeah, we don't need, what I was saying was we don't need Richard's remains, even though I want Richard's remains. Team Find Richard Halliday wants Richard's remains. But in order to get the accountability, in order to move forward, we need institutional support plus the evidence equals the accountability. Always remember that. That's what's really important here. And that's what we're getting. We're getting this institutional support now. You see that with Dan Patrick. And what do I mean by that? But Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor, has ordered an audit, a full audit of every little thing. We're talking about the meals, gassing up, everything of what it cost to conduct the trial against AG Paxton, okay, Attorney General Ken Paxton. So that is huge. And it's kind of like um, us asking for the open records from Miss Snotty, I think her name's pronounced Schnotty, uh, Miss Amy Schnotty, because we wanted to know how much was spent on our son's case, and we wanted to know how much was spent on the Walmart case, the Patrick Crusius case, because the Patrick Crusius case was a slam dunk, right? It was a slam dunk case for prosecution, and it's so strange that these AUSAs, these attorneys, are being so hush hush. They shouldn't be hush hush. That's American taxpayers' money. They're obligated to tell us how much they spent on Patrick Crucia's case. And so we don't know why they're so secret about that. And it was, during our son's time. We don't know. Um, we have some weird feelings about all of these monies and how they're being spent, just like the arms room and the weapons and the serial numbers on the weapons and the inventory in in the arms room. And we've had that funny feeling that things are stinky feeling when Rob picked up the weapons, and they had to have all these soldiers give Rob uh, Richard's weapon, and even that is, it's also questionable. Um, and then they were very upset that it got filmed. They were just, there's something really stinky about what was going on in the arms room. And so it is curious for us when we know now that January 27th, 2020, the parking lot DUI was a setup, and that Richard refused. And there is lots of anomalies between what Special Agent Soto was telling us and what the records, are saying to us. And that we know for a fact, because we lived through it, that Special Agent Marlon Soto could not get the breathalyzer correct. He was all over the place. He could not get his story correct on that. And, uh, you know, it, it was just so obvious that they were trying to develop a narrative. And the narrative was not truthful. It was a lie. It was a lie. And that's why he had such a hard time with it. To try to keep up a lying narrative is very difficult, right? It's so difficult. So, because you have to remember what's the narrative supposed to be, because it's so far from reality. And there was so many different parts of this story that he was trying to juggle. And if it was real, the 40 days, the 50 days that they had, it would have been very easy. It would have been a slam dunk case. Nobody had anomalies and irregularities in Patrick Crucia's case. And so with Richard, especially with the events happening at Fort Hood, which Fort Bliss, I think, is worse off. I think it's worse off than Fort Bliss. But the anomalies happening at Fort Bragg, the anomalies happening at Fort Hood, the anomalies happening at Fort Stewart, our soldiers being murdered, our whistleblowers being murdered, um, so many suicides, uh, young girls, and that's another thing happening. Oh my gosh, so many reports coming in. Um, with all of those crimes happening, um, you would think that Special Agent Soto would know it, would have his bullet points, would have his list ready, that Brigadier General Stewart would have his act together, that he would have his bullet list, that he would know what was happening in Richard's case, and he didn't. He didn't, y'all. They were so out of sync, and we knew that something was stinky, and we said it over and over and over again. We have all of our live streams to prove that we were saying something is not right. They can't get their story right, and we know that January 27th, 2020. We talked to the bond agent. She was like, "Oh my gosh, she was so sweet." Um, we know that Richard refused, refused, refused. We know that the breathalyzer tests are not admissible in court. It doesn't matter. We know that they used bad number. I mean, they used that case that Richard never pled guilty to, and they dismissed that case because of all the anomalies, because of all the irregularities, because of it was clear that it was a setup, clear with Boleyn being the enticer, Boleyn being the lure, you know, and uh, and it being like 15 yards, 15 feet, very close, depending on where you were in the parking lot, to the FBI special unit there, you know, and there was no probable cause to arrest Richard. There was no probable cause to go up to the car, right? And there was no evidence, nothing. So it was definitely a setup. And so this, and would they do that? Yes, of course they would do that. 3 years ago, I might, hesitate and say, well, I don't know, would they do something like that? I'm telling you right now, I want to clarify something. Do we have like Satan worshipers as leaders? And you might laugh at me for that. But when you have leaders that are having co-ed barracks and it's 9 to 1, 9 young men to 1 woman, and then in those barracks, you're making them flush with weapons, illegal. You're not following SOPs, standard operating procedures, to make sure that the rules are being followed, and they're flush with weapons. And then you're allowing them to be marketplaces for illegal drugs. And then you're allowing young girls, and we have confirmation today that it wasn't just one 14-year-old girl that was living in the barracks being prostituted out at night to the soldiers. It was multiple minors being abused on Fort Bliss, living in the barracks. This is what we're getting from our alliance there inside of Fort Bliss, that it is multiple minors. So they're doing that. What else are they doing? We know that they had child pornography. We know that they were developing it, making it. We know that there's 85,000 unaccounted for minors in the emergency intake center. Then I was wondering, did they get Delta Battery 143? Did they give them some duty over at the intake center? Now, someone might know something out there. Please let me know if they would give duty to some of these units that were just not, didn't have much to do. And did they give them duty over at the intake center where they needed a lot of people? I don't know. I don't know, but I know that things were not good. Things are not good now. They haven't changed. This soldier was telling us it hasn't changed. But what has changed is the fear and the grip on the soldiers has changed, that they are becoming braver, that they are willing to come forward. And so that's why you see the active duty soldier willing to risk everything, his career, everything, even his life, to put in a request for a congressional inquiry and mentioning Richard's case, because we did get notice, and let me make sure I have all of this. Oh yes, we got notice that he knows Leilani Hart, that he knows Dallas Hart. Okay, so that was breaking news because we don't know him. We don't know him, but he knows Dallas Hart. He knows Leilani Hart, and he's willing to come forward and ask for an inquiry, because a congressional inquiry, because he went to the chain of command and they did not want to hear or anything about Richard. Why not? Richard is a missing soldier. Why don't they want to hear about it? So we did get that news today, that the congressional inquiry soldier knows Leilani Hart, knows Dallas Hart, went through the chain of command. The chain of command did not want to help him at all. That the JAG was blocking any fraud, waste, and abuse complaints by soldiers, not just him. And so he had no choice but to become a whistleblower. And now this is our concern. Look at what even the president's son is allowed to do to whistleblowers. And whistleblowers should have protection. Look at what Angela Kucherga, look at what El Paso Matters, look at what the UTEP, isn't Kucherga, I just, maybe Chris Martin could clarify this, since he's at UTEP too, or he's a graduate or whatever, because I remember him telling me all about it. But Angela Kucherga, she's supposed to be this award-winning uh, journalist, and I think she helps with the UTEP paper. And she's not a very good example, right? I don't know what happened to her. Maybe once upon a time she was good, but I'm going to tell you, when I called her, and and Angela, um, you know, this is what's happening. You must not have a missing son, okay? This is what's happening. You have forgotten to be human, and you cannot tamper with a whistleblower. You cannot tamper with a key witness in a missing soldier's case, and you cannot tamper with a whistleblower, a soldier, and our son that's missing, and think that's okay and it has no consequences. That's criminal, absolutely criminal. And and I just want to tell you this, because maybe you can change your stripes back. Maybe you could change your spots back. Maybe you could take off your horns, because right now you're looking like a demonic figure to me. When you are tampering with a key witness, a whistleblower that will help us find our son, El Paso's whistleblower, missing soldier, it just seems so evil, so evil. And I don't know, if you have some kind of family relations, some kind of connections with a lawyer, that you have connections with Leilani Hart with, or Poche. I don't know. I don't know what connection you have. I don't know what orders you were given. I don't know what Bob Moore's connections are with the attorney or with Leilani Hart. I don't know. All I know is that this is criminal to tamper, to retaliate against, to intimidate a whistleblower, to try to anyway, to weaponize the media against um, someone that is innocent. And it's like what's happening using the Texas Congress to weaponize itself against AG Paxton. And so it's really good that this is the audit, that Dan Patrick is putting forth this audit right now. And, for Angela Kachurga to call us, and well, after I contacted her and said, "Look, you're intimidating with my son's case. What is going on?" Because I just looked at that article that you released with Leilani Hart and Poche with the veterans, and you know what she confirmed to me. Her reaction confirmed to me that it was all a lie, all a setup, just like what they did to Richard on January 27th, and I believe even what they did to him on March 28th, the border crossing that he never crossed, right? Because we have um, proof after proof after proof from Jay Pollan, from the nurse, from Captain Park, that Richard never crossed and that they had no right, the CBP, we don't even believe they arrested him. At this point, we don't believe they arrested him. We don't even believe they took his car away. I don't know, because there's no proof. We have no records from the CBP. We have nothing that it was just take him to the hospital and get the COVID tested. The stupid germ theory, that people are falling for because they've been hypnotized from this germ theory. And, but it's only a theory, y'all. It's only a theory. And, we need to, oh, I can't even imagine the fear that put into people. Um, and they had to test Richard, but thank God they did, because the nurse said he was only at the border briefly, because of the traffic, and he never crossed over. We have that in writing. We have that documented. So and we have her name, and so that is very, very important. Um, going back to this other soldier that has come forward saying Richard was murdered very early on in the arms room, and that is the crime scene. And it's very curious because Thomas Kane um, uh, mentioned that the general was saying, "Okay, I don't care. We can disobey every law, but we are going to redo that arms room." Why? Why? You don't have to have a contractor. You can work outside the law. We just have to quickly do it. Maybe they did it already, you see? And it would be very interesting because we're now being told that, by soldiers that are finally coming out, that are finally seeing, because of what happened to President Trump, the weaponization of our government against him, the weaponization of our government against Attorney General Paxton, the weaponization against whistleblowers, like in the Hunter Biden case, like in Richard Halliday's case, and in so many, and in so many, and the media, because you had to have listened to this conversation that I had with Miss Kachurga, because it just was so obvious that she had no humanity, no care at all for the whereabouts of our son, what happened to our son. It's like she already knew, right? She already knew, and it was, oh well, this is it. There was no curiosity. That's not a journalist. That's not a journalist. And there's so much to this story. She didn't even care. What she did care about was our key witness not being able to be a key witness, just like the military scrubbing our key witness from Richard's file so that even the IG Quantico would not even know, not be aware of the CID report, the FBI report, the report to the command by the key witness that Leilani Hart and Tavita Nusa, which Tavita Nusa absolutely had access. We know that now because they all had access. Um, that they leaked the files, they tampered with the files, they tampered with surveillance footage. There's video missing, video tampered with. We know that that would be in the hands of Thomas Kane for that to happen. So, so this was like a CID thing. And then we find out that Richard, they're telling us that our son was took part in an internship in the CID, which explains so much how he knew Thomas Kane, how he knew Ann Ogle, how he knew Tavita Nusa, how he knew Leilani Hart, how he knew Boleyn. This is why this clarification with Ann Ogle um, and Thomas Kane hiring Boleyn's parents uh, is so important, because then, it's like, okay, now we know how they met, because that always was, it always just, it just didn't make sense. It was a square peg in a round hole. It just didn't make sense. It didn't fit. And so now this all fits, and we need clarification. We need clarification. But this was absolute, and the clarification is going to be hard coming, because they're going to implicate, I mean, the CID has to implicate the CID, you know, and this leadership greenlit the murder of our son. It was a code red, clearly. It was a code red. And now we have this soldier that says he was murdered, and they had his remains early on. And that fits with the information that we were getting from the autopsy reports, and how they transported it, and that, and so that's very important. That's very important information. And also saying that multiple minors are being abused on Fort Bliss. Um, and then you have the other soldier. I don't want you to get these confused. The Congressional Inquiry soldier coming forward saying, the heat's on, and but he knows Leilani Hart, and he knows Dallas Hart. So, and that was said, go ahead and say that. So that's huge, huge. The other, oh yeah, I'm allowed to say this too. And when I say I'm allowed, it's for the protection of these two soldiers. The soldier that said that Richard, uh, that the crime scene was in the arms room, similar to Vanessa Guillen, um, and yeah, that it was told to us that, hey, look, the first lieutenant, the platoon leader, Dallas Hart was a platoon leader, would have access to the arms room. Um, yeah, so that is really, really huge news, huge. So Another thing, um, the Sound of Freedom producer, he is thinking about running for an office in Texas. I'm going to get behind this because a lot of people have been sending me this today and I need to read about this. But one thing that stuck out to me is that he was being attacked by some women that were saying that he was sexually hurting them or whatever. And he came back out and said, no, the LDS, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is behind these attacks. And that really got my attention. And so I'll be looking into that because um, absolutely there's a common denominator with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in our son's case. Okay. Even with this attorney that would be helping Leilani, even Leilani, even, there's this connection. And uh, this means that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is not religious anymore. They're very political. And I could tell you that with, I call it Romney Land, that whole area going all the way from Colonial Juarez up through El Paso, bits of, that part of New Mexico, all the way up to Utah. Um, because so many, so much information has been given to me. So there's a lot of power there, a lot of power. And, I've asked them to please be a light in this dark uh, case. And now I'm hearing from the producer of Sound of Freedom, and I have to, this just came into my attention, so I have to really read through it, but and correct me where I'm wrong, um, and I'm going to read my questions too. Um, that 7 Mormon women and lawyers designed the attacks against him. And I think that's very, very interesting. Um, Other news that came out that I thought was very interesting is the Walmart case article showed up today in Mexico. That's very, very important considering that the prosecutor for the Walmart case died, 49 years old. How did that happen? This is an attorney that's in air condition every day, a good wage, everything, and then all of a sudden he dies, or something evil, an evil spirit around this Walmart case. And why do I say that? Because the secrecy when it comes to the monies. So we need someone like Dan Patrick to order an audit of the Walmart case. What did they spend? And also Richard's case, because we're getting, for Richard's case, millions of dollars, minimum $6 million, minimum. That's minimum for Richard's case. So yeah, to hide the remains, to rebuild the arms room, or what's going on. And that's such new news to me about the arms room. And all I can think about is this paranormal lady that was telling me about the arms room. And Chris Martin came out, and Chris Martin has, who is he really? Who is he really? Um, yeah, to go and search for Richard's remains. Um, yeah, that was interesting. So I don't know. Some people might have good intentions. I don't know. We'll figure out who is who in all of this, right? Who had the good intentions and who were up to no good. Um, okay, it is freezing. It is freezing. How long? Oh yeah, my live stream was freezing. I hope it's better now. Thank you, Anicia. Danielle Dixon, how long before or after Richard's disappearance did the case get dismissed? They need probable cause for traffic stops, reason to pull an individual over. Citizens have the right to constitutional right to free travel. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Um, and that's why I think they dismissed Richard's case because he never pleaded guilty. There was refuse, refuse, refuse. There was all kinds of questions around this breathalyzer, and of course, um, Boleyn's narrative didn't help either. Okay, Boleyn's narrative uh, didn't help either, and I'm just saying that she's not. Uh, she, you know, I don't know what she is now, but at that time, she was not. Um, you know how they groom a groomed liar, criminal liar, and so it's terrible what they do um, to us. And I had a thought this morning about the language, and I'm not talking about dirty words or anything, even though that is part of it. But they when it's really hard for me to watch TV. I just do this every night, right? So um, these movies about the past are such lies. They're such lies because when you go out and you see the evidence, you go to Spain, you see the cathedrals, you see the towns, the cities, you see the star forts, you see the technology that they had then that is being kept from us um, because they did a lot of resonant sounds. Just so much. I don't want to go into it, but I'm just saying that the language, I'm old enough to know, that the language was very different. It was much kinder. It wasn't so harsh. And they, right now, are inundating us with a very violent, harsh, dirty language. They're trying to bring down our language. And so I think that's an attack. And I just felt like this morning I had to mention that um, because our language is getting very violent. And I remember saying that about Jay Pollin's violent spirit behind his language. And he was like, "What is she talking about?" And I wasn't talking about cussing, I wasn't talking about bodily harm. I was talking about the spirit behind the language, the carelessness, the inhumane nature, um, the callousness in the language. And all through this, it's been so clear and it's so polluting. And so I just felt like I needed to say that. Um, yeah, that was a total setup, and that means that the military police on January 27th were compromised. Okay, that's what that means. Okay. Um, the letter about the foxhole still gives me the chills. The fact someone in leadership would be so evil is very disturbing, in my opinion. Absolutely. And we have screenshot after screenshot, letter, message after message of very vile, vulgar language like that. And, when you're talking about a missing soldier's case and a family saying, "Where's my son?" I want a win win for the military. And the PAO is like, "Are you ready to hear about your son?" And telling Stars and Stripes, "Oh, he's drunk driver." I mean, how that is so insane because you can never find a soldier when you're smearing him, you know? And yeah, uh, it was such, everything points to that they already had Richard's remains. They didn't care about it. It was a show. It was all a show. It was all an act by so many millions of dollars, millions of dollars, and the military could get away with it. Look what they got away with COVID. Okay? The military could get away with it because the military, they have to take orders. And also, another theme, another, I should say, a common denominator in this is the veterans' disability benefits. It seems like lots of people in this are getting high percentage disability, if not 100% disability. And, Leilani was saying there's so much fraud. And she didn't say it once, okay? She started saying this, I think, in 2017, and then in 18, and in 2020, and then in 2021. She was saying that her husband, James Hart, is in the VA having an affair with Lisa Lennon Williams. It's in the open records. And I'm sorry, Lisa, but it's in the open records. She's accusing you of having an affair and profiting off of that from James Hart, who is committing fraud in the VA with our soldiers' disability benefits. Okay? And that those uh, social security numbers are being misused. The benefits are those are being coached, to favorable people. He's coaching who he wants to in order to get a higher percentage or to get the 100%. And so there's this thing going on of fraud, waste, and abuse inside the VA. We turned all that in. This is not anything new. We turned all that in to the Inspector General for the VA. And this was not us. This was Leilani Hart. Okay, this is Leilani Hart. And so you know, she was reporting on a lot of things. Having an extramarital affair, having being a pedophile, even sexually assaulting a 7-year-old in her master bedroom that was an active duty soldier's child. Uh, you know, uh, Her sons engaged in incest. Um, while Dallas Hart was an active duty soldier, you know, all the guns, the illegal gun purchases, the threats. I mean, it's just so diabolical. And so when I say, is our leadership, are they worshiping Satan? Because let me tell you, uh, who are they worshiping, right? Who are they acting for? You cannot be this diabolical, and not have your ideology with something evil, okay? And all the lies, and to hide our son's remains, to keep all this truth from us, um, to even do a code red on Richard, because what, you want to keep the child pornography going, or you want to keep the money coming in from the gun sales, the ammunition sales, the equipment sales that you're smuggling out with um, the intake. Well, oh geez, I don't even want to get into that. But with the tactical uh, move storage units, I mean, and then to have 85,000 unaccounted for minors. Is it the child trafficking? What is it? What is it that we're getting um, for 3 years? This kind of terrible situation from our military. And now we're starting to get institutional support because we have word that uh, they're looking into Leilani Hart. They're looking into the VA. They're paying attention. We have the congressional inquiry in there. So and more happening. We also have a new judge in the JAG, a new judge that took the place of Judge Robert Shook. And now we are going to, he's a full bird, by the way. He's a full bird, and we're going to resubmit our open records request to him because he's a new judge and he could probably give us some answers. um, you know, we'll see. We'll see. So it's going to be this kind of institutional support plus the evidence that will give us accountability. And that includes Park University, and that includes Angela Kercherga. And, so do we have hope in all of this when it includes the media, when it includes a university, when it includes the military, when it includes the FBI and the CID and the Department of Justice? Do we have hope? Our hope is not in man. You see, our hope is not in man. You know, there's a higher power, and that higher power, he always finds a way because dominion is his and dominion is ours under him. And people shake and shiver at the mention of his name, Jesus Christ. They shake and shiver because they know they have no chance with him. So that's who our hope is with. And if you've been paying attention to this case, you absolutely have seen God's hand all over it. All over it. Can you imagine that we even kept this going when my father was so sick? If people just don't even want to know what we were going through, I think Sammy C could tell you. Sammy C could tell you because he was talking to us regularly during that time. And to keep our son's case going, to keep these live streams going, it was a miracle, absolutely miracle. And then, of course, for the FBI man to find out who he was, that was a miracle. There's been miracles all over this. And so, yeah, I just, with Paxton being exonerated, being acquitted is a big deal. With Dan Patrick ordering this audit, this full audit on the trial of Ken Paxton is a very big deal. This Walmart case, that needs to happen too, because there's just something curious about that, okay, when it comes to the monies for our son because of the lawyer, because of the LDS having their hand on it. Yeah, so let's see, more questions. Have they ever processed any crime scenes surrounding Richard's disappearance with factual reports given to you or Rob? No. It has all been covered up. That is what's so irregular. That's an anomaly. Okay? Electrical was strange, yeah. I wonder if what she says has half the truth, then fears for her safety. So she is portraying mental health issues to cover the abuser. And the judge, you're talking about Leilani here, who's a convicted criminal for lying to authorities. Okay? And remember, she fears for her immigration status. Okay? She feared for her immigration status, which is very interesting. And we are in contact with Samoa, and not America Samoa, just regular Samoa. And, so, we'll see what comes out of there. That's institutional support. And, so what was the truth? what was not the truth. We know that in the case that she brought against an innocent soldier, because all the things that were happening in Hawaii that we know of, when we looked at all the cases, they were all against service members. It was chaos on that base because of Leilani Hart. And the judge said, you need to get mental evaluation. That was part of her punishment, was mental evaluation. So, yeah, so I think you're right on there, Danielle. Um, so others may deny involvement because of the serious of allegations. Just my opinion. Could mental health records of her son that passed away be accessed? Because that may tell you, probably you will. Yeah. And there's funny things going on with the social security numbers. Okay. I'm telling you, there's a lot of identity theft. There's a lot of funny things going on with the social security numbers, even within these group of people. So I don't understand. I don't know if they're trying to cover up their criminal records. Um, I know there were arrests in July 2020, um, and we're collecting those names, and that really reveals that Richard's life was in danger. That's why 5 days before he went and bought a pistol, his life was in danger. It's becoming clearer and clearer now that he was receiving threats and that his chain of command were after him. That the powers that were supposed to be protecting him as a whistleblower were after him. And we know that because they scrubbed his field grade Article 15 with maximum punishment and then some, which is criminal, from his archived file. And they can't even tell us why they did that. And they scrubbed his chaptering from his file. And then quietly, without any notification, promoted him twice. Promoted him in December of 2022 and April of 2023. You would think that one of these leaders would absolutely notify us when something like that was happening, just as a gesture of good faith. But no, they quietly did that. And if Rob didn't get the archive file, which this is, if you only knew how much work this all is, every day in and day out, all these letters, all of the requests, the begging, the begging, the begging, because they don't send it to you when they're in a timely manner. We're still waiting for other things. Um, and so you have to beg and beg. And then in the same time, you have to reach out to media. You have to reach out to people that are supposed to be helping you, that are supposed to be caring for service members, and they don't. They don't give a flip about service members. That has been a shocker for me. That our own congressman, that our own senator, that is a hip hip hooray for going to war. They don't give a flip about service members. They're just fodder, and I just and then they're rude about it. They're rude. They're so rude. It's so disrespectful. It is, Senator Graham, Representative William Timmons has been unbelievably disrespectful to what was going on in this case, what was going on in the military, and yet they care more about the Ukrainians than about, and I'm not saying I don't care about the Ukrainians. I do care about the Ukrainians, but their duty is to Americans first, to the service members first. It's like what's going on in New York with all these veterans being on the street. You got billions of dollars going into the Veterans Affairs, billions going to disability benefits. And yet there's fraud, waste, and abuse, and they're not doing oversight. They're not checking it. And then the very individuals that are suffering are sleeping on the street, and they're not getting the care that they have been promised. And you got others that are just taking advantage of the system. Who are they? That is, that came to my mind because I was watching a news report about all of these veterans on the street, and they're giving the migrants or these immigrants or whatever, they're giving them these hotel rooms and stuff, and the veterans are not being cared for because I'm telling you, our representatives, the senators, and for the most part, I'm not saying 100%, but for the most part, um, absolutely, William Timmons and Lindsey Graham do not care a flip about our service members, okay? Except for hurry up and get down to war, right? So, maybe they have shares in Lockheed Martin or whatever, I don't know. Um, yeah, sorry, but it is what it is, right? It is what it is, and I'm not telling lies from my opinion. I'm telling my opinion, the truth from my opinion, and from 3 years of collecting evidence, circumstantial evidence, and also irregularities. And this is what I have to say. It's just when they are going after a key witness in our son's case and then scrubbing him from our file so that nobody knows that Richard's file was being leaked and tampered with, and that it's a botched case, and that and the media is not even reporting that after Vanessa Guillen, after Austin Hawk, after Enrique Roman Martinez, and what about what has happened since then? The AWOLs and the so many suicides. So it's been very huge. I hope I covered everything that um, happened today because it was just amazing. The institutional support, the soldiers coming out, um, you know, with bravery, because they have a lot to lose right now. Um, I think they just have so much to lose, and they know that they have to stand up now for what's right and be strong. And I think our son's case hits so many of what is wrong. So much is wrong at Fort Bliss. So, one other thing that I do want to mention before I go is this soldier that's super brave, that knows Leilani Hart, that knows Dallas Hart, and we didn't know that. This happened today, that we don't know him, but he put in a request for a congressional inquiry. You know, it is a tough situation to be in. You see that with the whistleblowers, how they get treated, and in the Hunter Biden case, you see what happened to our whistleblower, an officer of the court, and what happened to him. And, and then Major General Eisenhower, not having any decision capability, you know. So uh, after being presented with all this evidence and not being able to make a decision, I mean, it's like, what makes him a general? I don't understand. Um, but this soldier that put in for the congressional inquiry, he needs our support. He needs to know. We need to send him a message, right? We need to send him a message of encouragement. Not only that, but like I've been saying, a hedge around him, a hedge of prayer, a hedge of support, a hedge of strength, right? And this sounds a loud message to Veronica Escobar, to a representative, one of the representatives that do not care a flip about our service members. So we need to let her know if she doesn't care, we have enough care for her, right? We care enough that we're going to make her care. And that's why the petition for him is so important to sign, because we need to be that caring force for our service members when our representative, who's supposed to represent our love and care for our service members, don't. And so we need to do it for them. And that's why the the petition is so important. So I think we have, about 172 signatures the last time I saw. Maybe there's more. Let's double it. Let's double it. If you haven't signed it, please sign it. Don't stop there. Share it with friends. Share it on the site. Explain to people what it is. Make posts about it. And let's show this service member that we are going to care enough about his right to inquire, to put in, to request a congressional inquiry. Um, we'll do it enough for him, for us, and for Veronica Escobar. And also, it was copied to Senator Ted Cruz. And if you want to write Senator Ted Cruz, if you want to write Veronica Escobar, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. So, thank you so much. No decision capability. Would they make him less than confident? I don't know what that means. I have to think about. Um, yeah, yeah, I don't know. Um, but please sign the petition. Get behind this soldier. It's authentic. It's not a con job. It's just to say he has the right to put in a congressional inquiry, and we support our service members to have that right. It is a signature, that a petition that everybody can get behind, even those that want the truth about Richard. They absolutely, Dallas Hart should absolutely sign it. So should Leilani, because Dallas says he wasn't there, but he hasn't showed any orders. So I think if he wants his privacy, this is a good way he can support this soldier. The congressional inquiry can be done, and you know, and then let it all come out. So I think it's a petition that everyone can get behind. So okay, thank you everyone for coming on tonight. And I see we're burning the midnight oil. And I just want to say thank you. We love you. God bless you for coming on so often. And yeah, thank you so much. God bless.